Everyone, welcome again. So we're going to be running today the information session for two of BAAL's calls, one for seminars and one for workshops. And I'm very happy to have here a few of my colleagues on the BAAL EC, Professor Zhu Hua and Dr. Caroline Tag. And we've also got two of our previous successful applicants for the workshops, Mr. Peter Browning and Dr. Sarah Gunnison, and you'll hear more from them in the course of today's presentation. I just need to keep an eye out for people who are joining. Okay, so the agenda for today is we will start with a welcome from Professor Zhu Hua, BAAL Chair. Then we will be looking at the BAAL Research and Development Workshop call, followed by the BAAL Cambridge University Press Seminar call. Then I'll provide you with some information about both calls, and we will have a final Q&A session. So in terms of housekeeping, if you could keep your microphones closed, that would be great. If you have any questions, if you could type in the chat as we go along, that would help quite considerably. And then we will also have time for you to come live if you want. Remember that this is being recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, then please don't turn on your camera or your microphone. All right, so without further ado, I will hand over the floor to Professor Zhu Hua for the welcome, please.
Well, thank you very much, Wanda, for organizing this, and warm welcome to all of you. I've just had a look at the list of participants. I can see some familiar names and some new names. As Karen said, these are potential members. Great to have you here. And so just really say very quickly who we are, why we are doing this. But Wanda will go into the details of call when it's his turn to talk. So BAAL is a member, is a community of more than around 1,300 members, and half of them are based in UK, and the other half is actually from the rest of the world, with some regions have a much more present than the others. And we are members-focused, member-centered communities. We're very keen to invest the membership fees back into the communities. For people who are familiar with BAAL activities, you may be aware we have a range of funding activities that's actually offer our members opportunities to apply for funding. We are using a fairly less formal procedure, so encouraging making the process easier. And if you are interested in applying for a particular strand. So today, Wanda is going to talk about two fundings that people can apply to set up seminars or set up research workshop. There are also other funding opportunities. For example, we're going to send out the call for apply linguistic funding, which you can apply up to 15,000 fund of the funding for your area, for the priority areas that will be specified in the call. We also run, since last year, we also run a successful BAAL Solidarity Membership Bursary Scheme. So if you know your colleagues or students who may benefit from the scheme, do please look out for the call for the next year. Okay, so I also want to say why we're actually doing this. This is actually the core, the funding scheme for the researchers workshop and also for seminar series. It has been long-standing activities for BAAL. But this is the first time, perhaps in my memory, we're actually running an information workshop largely to Wanda's willingness and kindness to organize and set aside his time. There is one particular reason we are doing this. This is really in response to our survey analysis. Last year we ran 55th anniversary survey, And our members, some of you may have filling out some of the questionnaires back then, have been asking about opportunities for mentoring, getting to know more about BAAL. So this is one of the responses and activities we have organized in order for members who want to know about how to apply these fundings and to facilitate, to make it easier for people who are interested to apply for the funding. So I will stop there and I will pass on to Wanda to go into the core. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Juhua, for that. And thank you for giving all this excellent background information about why we are running this. You're right. It is actually the very first time we run this, so please bear with us. We're trying to find what works best and supporting BAAL members to hopefully apply for these two calls that we have been running quite successfully for over a number of years. So we'll start with the most recent initiative, which is the BAAL Researcher Development Workshop call. This started back in 2020 with a view to support the development of BAAL's junior academic members, so doctoral students and early career researchers. Part of the rationale for setting up this call was also to ensure continuity, renewal in the applied linguistic community. So how can we get the junior members more involved in the association, more involved into the field, and helping them to develop further? So the workshops are freely accessible to all BAAL members, and this is a BAAL member benefit. So only BAAL members can attend the workshops. Members are registered for the workshops on a first come, first served basis. We prioritize registration of doctoral students and ECRs, but all BAAL members are welcome to attend, and actually, they have attended these workshops. So what are we looking for in relation to the workshops? We're looking for innovative, outside-the-box proposals, and you will hear from Peter later on about the workshop he very successfully conducted with a colleague of his, and that workshop was held at the University of Birmingham. So the departure point for a workshop is the identification of a need that is had by researchers, junior researchers, again, doctoral researchers or ECRs within the field of applied linguistics. So we're not aiming to duplicate what is already offered by institutions. We're not aiming to offer the same type of support that universities would offer to ECRs and doctoral students. So it's above and beyond that. And generally, the above and beyond element lies exactly within the field of applied linguistics, is bringing these topics, and Peter will talk later on. His workshop was on impact, bringing this discussion to the field of applied linguistics. So we would encourage people who are planning to go for the workshop call to think of a topic that would benefit colleagues across disciplines within applied linguistics and also across institutions as far as possible, obviously. So we're very much flexible in terms of how the workshops can be organized. And this might be a single workshop, as was the case for Peter. But if you look at the past workshops that we've had in previous years, sometimes there has been a series of workshops. And that's also possible. So it is what is appropriate for your application. We don't set boundaries in relation to that. We also don't specify the mode of the workshop. It may be an on-site workshop, as was the case with Birmingham. It might be an online workshop, as we had during the pandemic, for instance, or it could be blended with elements of on-site and online elements in between the on-site workshops. In case you go for an on-site or a blended workshop, we would ask you to think of a plan B, to think of how you could still deliver the workshop if the on-site element were not possible. Now, one thing that we would stress in the workshop, and also we're going to see that in the seminars as well, is the embedding of networking opportunities. That is also coming out from the survey that Juhua mentioned earlier on, that BAAL members have been asking for more networking opportunities. Now, how you're going to implement these network opportunities is very much up to you. So we want to give you the freedom to decide how to best do that. It might be the case that you've got a social activity planned after the workshop. It might be the case that you're building time for discussion within your workshop. There could be different ways of embedding networking opportunities within your workshop proposals. In relation to funding, it is open to all BAAL members, so anyone, any BAAL member can apply for that, irrespective of whether they are a doctoral student, an ECR, or a fully fledged academic. What we do for the workshop call is that we ring fence half of the funding to applications that are led by doctoral students or ECRs. So that we give these two groups, these two communities, the opportunity to apply for funding, to be funded, to start getting their funding track records for their later academic career. Generally, we would expect, although this is not a requirement, we would generally expect that rooms and equipment would be an institutional in-kind institutional contribution, because the workshops are not charged. So if someone wants to attend the workshop, they don't have to pay for it. It's a free event. It's a free workshop for all BAAL members. We would expect that potentially the university, the host university, would be generous to provide the rooms and equipment as in-kind institutional support. We offer a maximum of £1,500 per application, per workshop application, and that's if you were in York this year for our annual conference, you will have heard about that in the AGM. This is actually more funding than we used to offer in the past, so we have increased the amount of funding we have for this year, from this year onwards. People are also very much welcome to apply for lower amounts, and you don't have to apply for £1,500 pounds. If you don't need all of that, that's fine. So it's whatever works for your specific application. So the proposal, I won't really go into detail as far as the proposal is concerned, because you can read that in the call. I will just highlight the main information. I think that's important for you to keep in mind. It's a very short application, so it's a maximum of 2,500 words. I think the challenge in here is not writing the proposal, is actually thinking what to include in the proposal given the word limit. You will see that the sections are detailed in the call documentation, so you don't really need to think about how to structure your application. We give the headings there, and we explain what we would expect to see in each of those headings. And bearing in mind that the information needs to be quite brief, quite succinct, but very informative as well. The proposal itself should contain the finance plan, which is also available on the BAAL website. It is basically some sort of table in a Word document that you complete depending on what you want to spend the money on. In this case, you only have got expenditure, so you are not going to have any income because you're not charging any fees from those who are attending the workshops. Now, if you are a doctoral student or if you are an ECR member, your application needs to come with a letter of support. This letter of support should be written by your main supervisor if you're a doctoral student, or your line manager if you are an ECR. And again, in the call documentation, you will see the 4 points that the letter should contain. There are very specific guidelines there for this letter. You can find all the information online on the BAAL website. I'm giving here the link, but that was on my email as well. And if you Google BAAL, you'll be able to find the section where we talk about the workshops there. So one thing that people have asked time and time again, and that is included in the documentation for this call, is how do we evaluate the applications? There are 4 different criteria we use in order to assess the applications we receive. The first criterion is whether the application meets the workshop requirements. And in this case, we have 3 main requirements for workshop evaluation. First, it needs to address a researcher development need. It needs to address the needs of doctoral students and ECRs in applied linguistics. And it also needs to give careful consideration of EDI matters. And I'll talk a bit more about EDI when we're talking about both calls, because that's shared across the 2 calls. So there are 3 main elements in workshop requirements. The other criterion we use is to evaluate the quality of the proposal. So is the proposal innovative? Is it distinctive? Is it different from what is already offered out there by universities? How is it adding value, not duplicating efforts? The other 2 criteria relate to the reach and budget. So reach refers to how appealing the workshop is to attendees in different disciplines. So rather than focusing on one specific sub-discipline within applied linguistics, we would encourage people to think of workshops that would appeal to attendees across applied linguistics, again, as far as possible. And also across different institutions. So we wouldn't be looking for a workshop proposal that is targeted to one specific university. We would be looking for workshops that would be of interest to people across different institutions. And the final criterion is the budget. The questions we ask here is the financial plan feasible? Is it coherent with the application? Is there clear justification for what is being requested? And does it offer value for money? So these are the 4 criteria that we use to assess workshop applications. And when we come to the final session, I'll talk a little bit more about the procedures that we use to assess applications, because that's also shared between the 2 calls we're talking today. Now, in terms of the work that is requested after the workshop is held, we kindly request colleagues to submit one academic report, one short academic report to be included in the BAAL newsletter, so that other colleagues within BAAL can learn about that, can learn about the success of your workshop. And we also request a financial report. And this financial report is really like just basically detailing how the money was spent in comparison to what you had in your original bid. So I think I will stop here, because this is basically my part in relation looking at the highlights of the call. I would like to give the floor now to Peter, who is here, who has very generously agreed to be here with us today to share his experience of successfully applying and successfully running a workshop at Birmingham. So you can see the title of his workshop on the slide. This was a workshop aimed at looking at impact. It was jointly organized by Peter and Katie across 2 different institutions, the University of Birmingham and the University of West of Scotland, and it was held just this year back in May, so quite fresh in Peter's mind. So Peter, if that's okay with you, I will hand over the floor to you now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Vanda. And thank you for inviting me to share my experiences. Hopefully they'll be helpful for some of the people who are here. So yeah, I'm Peter Browning. So I'm a final stage PhD at UCL, but I'm also a teaching fellow at the University of Birmingham. And I'm also speaking on behalf of my wonderful colleague, Katie Hyatt, who's a lecturer at the University of Western Scotland, who unfortunately couldn't be here. But everything I'm saying was kind of jointly organised between both of us. And yeah, so just I think thank you to BAAL as well, who just saw the potential in our application and awarded us the funds. So it's great to see so many people who are interested in hopefully following those footsteps, and hopefully some of you will be in my position sharing your experiences with new applicants next year. So yeah, Vanda asked us to kind of share a little bit about our experience, about some of the things that we found went well, some things that we might revise if we were to do our applications again. So just in general, our workshop, as Vanda just said, was aimed at early career researchers and PhDs around this issue of impact. It's something that Katie and I had noticed was coming through again and again in in the world of research, this kind of impact agenda. And we wanted to think about what that meant for us as applied linguists, and to think about that critically, right? So not just taking impact as something as like a tick box exercise, but rather impact as something that we can bring to the heart of our work, and what that means for different colleagues across applied linguistics. So really what we wanted to do, and what I think we achieved, was to create kind of a space in which PhDs and early career researchers from different parts of applied linguistics come together and bring their diverse perspectives and angles on this question. And we had some really great conversations, and they're still ongoing. Some of those conversations we're hoping to kind of consolidate into a special issue of some sort coming soon. So what we did was we were able to shape the day. We planned our workshop as a day-long event in a way that allowed us to kind of build these conversations, to get some momentum going, to get some input from colleagues who are at a more senior level. Just remember, this is for the design was for PhDs and for early careers, so we got some input from more senior colleagues, as well as practitioners who are working in the fields of applied linguistics outside of the academy, which really helped us to kind of get some fresh perspectives on impact. And by the end of the day, all of us reflect back on our own work and how we're going to take what we had developed during the workshop into our own work. So some of the things that I think that were really valuable, that I would kind of suggest maybe thinking about in your own applications, was the variety of activities that we had. Although it was a one day, we made sure that we had quite a variety of activities, put a lot of time into the planning to make sure that it really was a workshop, right? So not just an excuse to have kind of a series of talks, but they're working together and seeing what we could construct together. So we had moments of sharing of our own research from our PhD and early career trajectories. So say we had a roundtable discussion with colleagues working on questions of impact at different kind of career stages, as well as practitioners who are working in applied linguistics. And that roundtable discussion was very much led by the questions that we had generated as a group within the workshop. Then in the afternoon, we took some of our reflections and then turned the focus on ourselves and our own research, and really thought about how we could develop our own research in light of some of the kind of the interrogatives and some of the questions and approaches that had been raised, as well as from the experience of each other. Because what we were very keen to foreground in our workshop is the fact that across our own experiences as early career researchers and PhD researchers, we all have different answers to these questions of impact and how we understand impact in research, or how we generate our own impact. So it was really valuable for us to understand, for example, a teacher talking to somebody who is interested in health communication, talking to somebody else who's interested in kind of more discursively oriented work, how do we see impact? And that kind of connection that we managed to get, I think, is something really valuable. So I'd really think about a variety of activities, about connections between each other, also kind of the transversality of those connections. So whilst the focus of the event is for the development of early career and PhD researchers, I think it's really valuable that we involved some colleagues from different career stages, because they were able to give us some good guidance from their experience. And also, you know, that's kind of the spirit of BAAL, is a sense of sharing and developing all together. So that really made those interactions more fruitful. We planned a physical event, and I think that was really valuable for what we were able to do. And we thought carefully about the location. You know, Birmingham is very much in the middle of the country, and that was great because it meant that lots of people could come from different places, which isn't always the case. And kind of related to that, you know, we thought a lot about accessibility. So accessibility of these events isn't always something that is possible for some students. So a lot of our funds we allocated towards bursaries to enable people to come, for travel bursaries. But something I would make sure in your applications is that you establish really clear criteria for what those bursaries are from the outset, just so you are able to assess who is able to access those funds and who not. We made sure we had a nice long lunch break, 2 coffee breaks. You know, that might sound flippant, but these moments are really important, not only for recharging batteries because we can't be focused all day, but for the networking moments that happen there. So in your proposals, you know, don't think about overfilling your workshops. Try and find some space for those organic moments of networking, of following up questions, of asking somebody in a different group about that reference that they mentioned. And we had some really fruitful discussions there. So those are great moments to build in to your proposal from the start. Something else that was really valuable for Katie and myself was also this having an evaluation moment at the end. So we designed an evaluation form that we circulated amongst all the participants, and that was really great because we got some feedback about what went well and what we could adapt if we were to kind of offer this workshop elsewhere. So not only did it kind of help to develop the participants, but us as workshop facilitators also got some great development opportunity out of the workshop. Some things to kind of be careful of, I think, or to be aware of. Again, it's a very simple one, but kind of check your tech setup. So we planned our hybrid roundtable discussion with some participants in person and some online. We had a few difficulties on the day. We managed to overcome them, but you know, it's nicer if you can have things running smoothly. So already from when you're planning your workshop and sending your proposal, you can think about the physical space or the online space that you're going to be using. It might be a good idea as well to meet the admin team or the finance team well in advance of running the workshop, because you know you'll have to see how at your institution those things work, and their timelines are often quite long, right? They're running on different timelines to what you might be running on. So you might even approach them just to let them know that you've submitted a proposal, so that they'll have it on their radar that you might be contacting them further in terms of invoicing, catering, that sort of thing. Also, I double check the protocols at your institutions for inviting external speakers. So these are the sort of things that there's processes that often need to go in place, and they can take up valuable time, all of this kind of admin. So make sure you build those sort of things into your timeline when you're thinking about planning your workshop. I think our workshop was a long day. It was very fruitful. We might think about doing a similar thing over a couple of days in the future, but it's something to bear in mind, right? Just to think about how you can organize your workshop. As Wanda said, there's no expectation that it has to be a one-off. You could separate it differently. But then I do think the value of having that long day is that working together and that kind of, as I say, the workshop element. Something else that you could maybe think about is how you can generate evidences or kind of memorandum of the day. So we have photos, we have lots of photos that Katie and I took of the day, but I think it would have been nice if we'd also maybe had a Padlet where participants had shared their own experiences, their own photos, so that our final report could maybe have been a bit more multivocal and not just from Katie and my perspective. But overall, I mean, it's a great experience. It's something that I think Katie and I really found valuable, as I say, for the discussions that we've been having about impact, for being able to share that and generate some more knowledge with colleagues at a similar career stage as us, and also for us to develop ourselves as workshop leaders. So keep those things in mind. It's a great opportunity. BAAL is one of the only places that you'll get such a chance. So best of luck. Manda's very helpful if you have questions. He knows the process inside out, but also, I can share my contact via Manda if you have any questions about your proposals. Yeah, and if you are not already a member of BAAL, hopefully this will encourage you to sign up as well, either to propose a bid or to attend, the workshop that ends up getting funded.
That's grand, Peter. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you very much for speaking on behalf of BAAL. So that's excellent. I mean, it was great overview of what you did, and I mean the rationale for doing things the way you did, and also thinking about things that you realized as you moved ahead with the preparation and the organization of the workshop. So thank you very much for that, Peter. Much appreciated indeed. So we will now move on to the second call that we are having, that we have open. And this call is a joint call with BAAL and Cambridge University Press. So we're now also looking for seminars. This has been a longer call that we've had over the years within BAAL, and you can see all the past seminars on the BAAL website as well. So if you got a history in there, the same thing with the BAAL workshop. So if you want to see what has been done by whom, so on and so forth, all the information is available online. So what are we looking for in when we're assessing the seminar applications? And we are looking for seminars that are on emergent, timely, or relevant topics or methods within applied linguistics. We are looking for seminars that have given considerable consideration to how that topic is accessible to a wider audience. So one question I've had is, what about if I want to do a seminar that is on a very specific topic? We don't have any restrictions, but it's part of your application to make sure that that very specific topic will be accessible, will be understood, will be of relevance, will be of interest to a wider audience. We would also encourage people to think about interdisciplinary topics. You might have seen that in the current BAAL the current BAAL Cambridge University Press seminar is exactly bringing two different areas together, applied linguistics and migration studies. So that's also one thing that we would encourage, although it's not a requirement, it's something that we would encourage colleagues to think about. The seminar itself should allow for an in-depth examination of the topic or the methods that you have selected. Now, one key point in here is that we're not looking to fund mini conferences. We're not looking to fund something that would look like the BAAL annual conference in a smaller scale or any other conference in another smaller scale. We're looking for an actual seminar where there is time for discussion, where there is time for participants' interaction, where there is time for people to network. Again, coming back to the topic that has come out of the BAAL survey, but has always been a key principle for seminar evaluation. Similar to what I said in relation to the workshops, we don't make any restrictions to seminars. It can be online, on-site, it can be a combination of the two of them. If you do have an on-site element in your seminar, then we would ask for a plan B. We would ask for how you would ensure that the seminar can still go ahead if that cannot be held at that point in time in person. So in relation to the seminars, we would also very much encourage colleagues to think about post-seminar outcomes. What's going to come out of your seminar? What is it that you're planning to do after the seminar? So some ideas that people have done over the years is, they have planned edited books. And if you're planning on having a book out of your seminar, Cambridge University Press should be given priority in that. So they should be the first publisher you should approach for that book proposal because of the agreements we have for this seminar workshop. And then I can put you in contact with the relevant person within Cambridge University Press if you're successful with your seminar and if you want to have to consult them on the possibility of having a book out. We actually have got, one of our BAAL AC members has organized a seminar years ago, and they have had an edited book out with Cambridge University Press. So some other colleagues would think of special journal issues, and I think that might be the case for Sarah, if I remember that correctly. Yeah, so thank you, Sarah, for giving me the reassurance for that. So she'll probably be talking more about that later on. A colleague who organized another seminar then proposed to launch a new BAAL SIG special interest group. So that also came out to one of the seminars. So the seminar was used as a springboard for that future SIG. Other people would use the seminar as a way of building the connections for follow-up funding applications, research funding applications. So we don't specify what seminar outcomes you should have or you could have. We leave it open, but we encourage people to think about what's going to happen after the seminar. Where is the seminar leading? So the financial support, similar to what I said in relation to the workshops, has also been increased. We're now offering a maximum of £2,000 per seminar proposal. You may decide to bid for 2,000, but you may also decide to bid for lower than that. That's totally fine. In the case of the workshops, we also offer a repayable float of £1,000. So this basically allows colleagues to organize a seminar, to have the money to run a seminar, but then they would have to pay the association back that £1,000. So there should be a way of, either you're going to get funding from elsewhere or you're charging attendees a registration fee that would allow you to receive that money back and then repay BAAL. So the proposal, you can find all the information again in the call documentation. Similar to the workshop one, it's a maximum of 2,500 words, so a very short proposal, and all the sections are detailed in the call documentation. So you have there an indication of all the section headings that you should have and what they should contain. You also need a financial plan, which is available on the website. In the case of the seminar, the financial plan is slightly different because you do not only have expenditures, you do not only have what you're going to spend the money on, but you also have income. You also have the money you will receive from attendees. And you should plan for 4 different registration categories. So there should be 2 categories for BAAL members, one at a reduced rate for students, retired, and unemployed colleagues, and one at a regular rate. And then the same reduced and regular rates for non-BAAL members. Again, this information is available in the call documentation as well as a matter of fact, as part of the financial plan. So how do we evaluate seminars? We use 4 main criteria. So you can see the first 2 criteria on this slide. The first one looks at seminar specifics, looks at whether you have addressed 5 key points that we request in the call. So the 5 key points are does the number of attendees that you have planned to have in your seminar allow you to ensure participation during the event, allow you to ensure that there is going to be participants interaction during the seminar? So if you're planning something that will be attended by 100 people, it's unlikely that you will be able to evidence that. You could. I mean, I have never seen in my term of office, but yeah, we would generally go for smaller seminars. Have you included informal meeting opportunities in the program to allow for networking opportunities? Do the session formats and the length of the session formats you have proposed are appropriate for what you're planning to do? Have you considered EDI matters? And I'll come back to that later on after when I talk about the general points about both goals. And have you considered potential seminar outcomes? So what is going to come out of your seminar? What's the next stage after your seminar? So these are the first 5 points that we look into, we look to find in your proposal when we're evaluating the seminar specifics. The other criterion relates to proposal quality. So how innovative, how timely is your proposal and the topic and the methods that you are focusing on in your seminar? Then we look at the reach of your proposal. Will this be of interest to attendees across applied linguistics in different disciplines and or in non-academic professions? How have you conceptualized the potential reach of your seminar? And have you obviously provided evidence for that? And then we also look at the budget, whether it provides justification for everything we're requesting and whether it offers value for money. So these are the 4 criteria that we use to evaluate seminar proposals. In terms of reports after the event, we request 2 academic reports, one to be included in BAAL newsletter, in the BAAL newsletter, and another one to be published in language teaching. So that's part of the agreement we have with CUP. So all BAAL CUP seminars are publicized within language teaching. And a financial report at the end of the event. This financial report is likely different from the workshop one in that you will have you have an account of both how much you spent, but also how much you gathered from attendees in your seminar. So I think this is an overview of the seminar call. I won't, as I said, I won't read the call or go into every little detail because you can read that yourselves. I would like now to open the floor to invite Sarah to talk about her seminar. So this was held back in 2022. This, similar to Peter, this was a joint proposal. So Sarah, who's based at Newcastle, worked with her colleague Alexandra at the University of West London to look at the topic of researching vulnerable multilinguals. So Sarah, thank you very much for opening the space in your busy agenda to be here with us and to share your experience of applying and running the seminar. Over to you, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here and listening to me and to us on a Friday afternoon. So I'm Sarah Ganasin, and I'm a lecturer in Applied Linguistics and Communication at the School of Education of Newcastle University. Today, I'm also speaking on behalf of my colleague Alexandra, who couldn't be here with us. So Alexandra is based at the University of West London. This wasn't our first collaboration, so we had worked together on a summer school funded by the Association of Commonwealth University, and we also worked together as part of the BAAL Multilingualism Special Interest Group. So in terms of the context of this seminar, we were building on an event that we had during Refugee Week 2021. The event, because of the pandemic, had to be online, and it was on the topic of highly skilled refugees and more generally on the contribution that refugees make to their host societies. So because we had a lot of very good attendance and good feedback on that event, we wanted to organize a face-to-face event. So I think at the time when we wrote the application, it was still semi-optimistic, like we thought, okay, it's going to be face-to-face, but it might not. So of course, we had a contingency plan to move the event online, but we were desperately hoping that it was going to be an event face-to-face. And so we really wanted to bring people together, researchers who are interested in work with refugees and other displaced groups. The theme of vulnerability had emerged during the BAAL Special Interest Group seminar, so we really wanted it to be the focus of this seminar, and we wanted to offer an opportunity for people to share their own work. In terms of the broader context of the workshop, yes, of course, it builds on our own research expertise and interest. At the time, because we are looking back at 2022, there were the events in Afghanistan and the Afghanistan-related refugee crisis. So we thought that this could have informed the focus of the seminar in terms of getting people interested. Also, as I was saying, we were just coming out of the pandemic and we really, really wanted to have a face-to-face event. In terms of what we did during the event, or what we wanted to do with the seminar, we wanted to share good practice, so bring people together, bring researchers at different stages together, and get them to talk about how they work with vulnerable multilinguals. So rather than asking people to present the direct findings, if you want, of their studies with migrant and displaced group, we wanted to know how people work with these groups, what is it they consider good practice. So it was really on methodology rather than on findings emerging from research. We also wanted to bring together academics from different disciplines, and we have been successful in that. There were people from geography, sociology, cultural studies, so not just applied linguists. Also offering an opportunity to ACR and PhD students. So we had a mix of people, but we were also aware that a number of PhD students and ECR, they were coming out of the pandemic and maybe they spent a large part of the PhD being isolated and not having met anybody in person. So we wanted to offer that. We also wanted to try, and building on the idea of good practice, offering some guidance on how to exhibit research sensitivity, for example, in work with vulnerable groups, and also getting people to share their own research. So now that bit is a bit tricky because, as Vander was saying, this is not a conference, and we didn't want it to be a conference like a mini BAAL conference in the proper sense. But we also felt that people would feel keener on participating, on traveling, if they could also share what they do in a structured manner. So what we did is that we started with, we created a call for a poster session. So the idea was having a room. We decided to go in terms of location for the University of West London. I'm going to say a bit later why and what worked, what didn't work with that. But the idea is that a big, nice, friendly room, and we ask participants to prepare a poster in advance, focusing again on methodology, how they did or they're doing their research with vulnerable multilinguals, particularly with asylum seekers and refugees. But then we also had people focusing on other groups, which was also interesting. So we asked people to send us the posters in advance, or to print them out and bring them. And so the setting was with all the posters around the wall, and we started with a poster session. And then we had a round table discussion, a plenary session with two presenters, so two colleagues, Judith Reynolds and Mohamed Atik, who have done research on asylum seekers and refugees. So they presented their work, and we had a conversation. As Peter was saying, we really focus on building a lot of time and space for food, really nice catering, by the way, opportunities for people to network, to talk. We also had a networking activity, something like a research speed date or a human bingo, something just to get people up and to talk to each other. So overall, the seminar lasts for around 4 hours. It was like an half-a-day event, starting with with lunch. Some learning points for me. So the first one would be on the choice of collaborator. As I said, I can only speak for myself, but I've worked with Alexandra in a number of occasions. I work with her really well. And so it was a semi-tested relationship that then developed into other opportunities. I think that you might want to consider working with somebody that you know really well, and so that you know the pros and cons. Or if it's a new relationship, it's a good way of testing it, because it's like a little holiday. If it goes well, it's great. If it doesn't go well, everybody goes home and that's it. But it is something to consider. If it's an event that you are organizing in partnership, I also think, and again, I don't want to repeat too much what Peter said, but consider the how to say, support available from the institutions involved. So things around finance, who needs to approve your application. It is possible that like your research development manager and your line manager or whoever is involved needs to approve the proposal. So you need to make time for the writing. I think that there are rules around how many applications can be accepted from the same institution. So please check those, because I was, from what I understand from BAAL, that there needs to be a gap of 2 years in terms of applications from the same institution. So again, if you have a colleague who have applied the previous year, maybe you need to wait, so there's no point in applying. Also, maybe letting know your other colleagues who might also want to apply that you are doing it, so that you can invite them in, or I don't know, just let them know that you're going to do it. Again, and this is around management of the event itself. I believe that there are institutions that, for example, if you create an Eventbrite, wants to manage it for you. And this was the case for us. So really check who is going to do what kind of admin support is available or not available in your institution. In terms of location, so as I was saying, we really, really wanted to go for a face-to-face event because we just wanted to get out of the house and meet people, and we felt the other wanted the same. Of course, there are pros and cons, and there are always people who are going to be excluded. I also think that for events which are highly interactive, when you have a lot of small workshops, speed dating, some activities, it's very hard if the format is hybrid, both for the technicalities, but also because you would exclude people who are at home from certain things. We chose London because we felt that we might have reached a wider audience. Now, I'm not saying that London is better than Newcastle. We worried that people could see Newcastle as a bit remote. Unfortunately, I think that any physical location would exclude people. And this is because travel is so expensive in the UK, and particularly public transport is not very good and it's expensive. So we had a number of researchers who came from Birmingham up to the Midlands, I would say. But again, it's something that you might want to consider, even if the scope of duplicating the same event into 2 different locations. One thing that I think really helps is building into the application bursaries for particularly early career researchers or students, because I think that a lot of us don't necessarily have money to travel, and particularly PhD students. So I think that a good part of the budget could be dedicated to that, just thinking of train tickets for people to attend. In terms of enabling sharing that element, we went for the posters because we thought, okay, it's a way for people to share that research that is not a formal presentation. However, something that people said in the feedback is that there were cases where some posters were more popular than others. So we didn't really have a structured activity around the posters. It was like, okay, walk around the room, look at the posters and ask questions. If I had to do it again, and if I was doing posters, I think that I would want a more structured activity so that everybody is included, everybody gets questions, and you don't have crowds on one poster and somebody alone around the corner. The evaluation, again, very important to get a sense of what you could have done better and of what worked well. Also is a good way of gathering nice quotes for the BAAL newsletter and for the other reports. Last point around the outcomes. So personally, I think that this particular seminar is a great way of supporting you and encouraging you to produce outcomes. So you walk out of the experience, not just with a nice event, but also with a couple of outcomes. So in terms of the article on the BAAL newsletter is pretty straightforward. You would write a short article with some quotes that can come from participants. Sal Consul is now in charge of the newsletter. It's also like a great person to deal with. So that's very straightforward. Where I have some advice is on that article on language teaching. Because I created a bit of a problem in the sense that apparently between my institution and the journal, there is an agreement on open access. So whatever we publish there should be open access. So I was sent an email saying, okay, click here and get open access. I did it. And then I realized that open access is only for referred paper, is not for practice report. And so I was sent a bill of a couple of £1,000. We had to ask to waive it, to get multiple people involved. Check what are the requirements in your institution, but don't be lured into the opportunity of an open access publication because it turned into a bit of a nightmare. Okay. But nevertheless, it's a good opportunity and is a very light touch report, which in our case got a lot of quite a lot of exposure and some citations. So it is good, but check on the open access. In terms of other outcomes and development, we decided to have a journal special issue. For different reasons, we didn't want to do an edited volume. If we did, as Vanda said, Cambridge University Press is the first port of call. We decided, particularly me, because I've just edited a volume, that I wanted to do a journal instead. But anyway, the process is that you have to approach Cambridge University Press and disclose why you don't want to do an edited volume with them, and then explain what you want to do. So they were very, very nice. And in fact, then we ended up talking about another publication with them. And so we are in the process of editing an issue based on the seminar of language and intercultural communication, which should be out sometimes next year. We are also organizing a symposium at the next IALIC conference in Nicosia. So it was really great in terms of generating outputs. And I hope that I didn't go over time too much. Anyway, thank you so much.
That's brilliant, Sarah. Thank you very much for this very candid and thoughtful reflection on what went well and what didn't go so well. Yes, that issue you mentioned about the open access was the very first time I came across through you. So that was a learning experience for all of us. Thank you for sharing that and all the other thoughts. I think perhaps I should just highlight that, I mean, it happens to be that both the example we have from the workshop and from the seminar, they both were co-organized by two different people in two different institutions. This is just a matter of coincidence of people who generously agreed to be here today. It doesn't need to be that way. So it can be, applications can be by a single person if that is what you want to do. All right, so I think what I will do now is move on to the general info about both calls. So rather than repeating the same information when we're talking about the calls, I left some of the bits for this section because they are common across both calls. So the first thing is about EGI. So you will have noticed that I mentioned that both in relation to workshops and seminars, whether you're applying for one or for the other, we will ask you to engage with EGI EGI and to consider how you can address these points in your application, how you have thought through EGI matters in planning your seminar or your workshop. So it might be the case in your choice of speakers, if you're going to go for a seminar. It might be the case in how you're conceptualizing awarding the waivers, the fee waivers, or the bursaries, as both Peter and Sarah mentioned. So one very first port of call is BAAL's position on EGI, which is available on the BAAL website, and we would ask colleagues to refer to that and to use that as a springboard for your thinking about how you are bringing EGI matters in the planning, in the conceptualization, and in the implementation of your seminar or workshop. You will see my slides. We've also got an example of good practice that was from this year's BAAL conference. Now, please bear in mind that this is from a conference. This is not something to be used as a model to be followed, but this is more of an example of good practice that you obviously will need to adapt to the specific events that you are planning, to the specific seminar or workshop that you're planning. In both the seminar and the workshop case, EGI, addressing EGI matters is part of the evaluation criteria. So it is important that you engage with these things and that you explain how you have engaged with these matters. Now, one question I got asked is when I emailed BAAL members about this session is about the evaluation procedure. So I thought it would be helpful just to let you know how we go about evaluating the applications we receive. So the first stage is an eligibility check, is checking whether the proponents are BAAL members, whether the proponents are from institutions that haven't applied in the past 2 years, so on and so forth. So that's the first round of evaluation. Then we do an individual assessment of each proposal by some of the BAAL EC members. You see on your screen both Juhua and Caroline, 2 of the EC members, well, 3 with me. And then there are several others which you can who you can find on the website as well. So these reviewers are asked to evaluate each proposal under the 4 criteria I mentioned to you, the 4 workshop criteria or the 4 seminar criteria, and they will score these criteria with in a numerical way. They will also identify what are the positive points in the proposal, what is strong in the proposal. They will identify points that could have been improved, so points that mean they would wish to have seen in the proposal. And then points that need to be actioned before final acceptance. This will be linked to what I will tell you later on, in that our outcome is not a yes or no. It has never been a yes or no in my experience during my time with BAAL. It's always either a no, but here is some feedback for you if you want to reapply next year, or it is a yes, and here is a bit of a few points that we would like you to consider before we finally confirm the award. So once the individual assessment has been completed, we do the final ranking of the proposals. So we get all the proposals and rank them in decreasing order of evaluation. And then once we have the ranking, once we have identified the number of proposals that are going to be funded, both the proposals and the evaluation are circulated to all BAAL EC members who need to ratify the outcome, who need to confirm the outcome. So the results, when they're out there, they're not by just a few people, they are by the entire EC. So this is the kind of procedure we follow to evaluate both the workshop and the seminar applications. You will have seen the important dates in the call documentation. So I think the most important one is the 17th of November, the deadline for both the workshops and the seminars. We are hoping to get back to colleagues by the 22nd of December. with good news for your Christmas and New Year's if you celebrate those holidays. And then the events are to be run in the 2024 calendar year from January to December. So some FAQs that I have received in the past week. Eligibility, one thing that Sarah has just mentioned. So for both calls, there needs to be a 2-year gap after the last awards. So let's say if someone from Birmingham were to apply for the workshop call this year, they wouldn't be eligible because Peter has been successful in the past year. There needs to be a 2-year gap. It doesn't really matter which specific school, institute, faculty they're based. It's the university that we look at. So if you're unsure whether you are eligible or not, you can always go back to the BAAL website where you have got a record of who was awarded when. Now, one thing for you to keep in mind is that the workshop is independent of the seminar. So let's say if someone from Birmingham wanted to apply for the workshop, that wouldn't be possible because they are not eligible, but they would be eligible for the seminar because I think they would be eligible. We would need to check the records, but I don't think there has been a seminar held at Birmingham recently. Applicants need to be BAAL members, so that's also part of our eligibility check. We see whether the applicants are BAAL members. Now, in relation to venue, if you're planning an on-site event, we would expect this event to be held within the UK, where it would be accessible by most of our members. If it is an online event, then there is no restriction, so it's open. It can be held. It can be physically based anywhere. Well, yeah, physically online. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. So in terms of a venue that is different from applicant's university, that's a question I recently received. So let's say if I am from University A, I'm applying on my own for something and I want to organize this in the city B. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. One thing you need to bear in mind is that there might be budgetary implications. So will you have access to free rooms and equipment in this other city? If not, then you need to include that in your budget, and then you need to justify why that is important, because we would generally expect that rooms and equipment would come from the university where the host is. So it's not impossible. It is possible. You need to justify that cost. I think Sarah was mentioning the financial management. That is extremely important, especially if you're doing this jointly. You will need to decide who will be responsible for the financial management. Generally, we would understand that the lead applicant is the one who will be dealing with BAAL, who will be communicating with BAAL, and who will be managing the grant. So we would see that the lead applicant's university is the host university. So BAAL wouldn't liaise with 2 or 3 universities. BAAL would liaise with one university only, and that is the university of the lead applicant. So if the money needs to be transferred from the lead applicant to another university, then it's up to the host university to do that, not BAAL. Okay, what other questions have we got? Oh yes, lots of questions in relation to funding, to what is available and what is possible. So we don't entertain payment to guest speakers. So things like honorarium, we don't entertain that. I mean, it's part of BAAL's policy. You are entitled to include a gift to guest speakers if needed, but there is a maximum amount, and it is indicated in the call what that maximum amount is. If I'm not incorrect, it's £50 per person, and no payment to applicants. So if you are organizing a seminar or workshop, no payment should go to you. We would also encourage colleagues to think of travel sustainability when planning for trips. So if someone is traveling within the UK, we would generally expect that the person would travel by bus or train rather than flying. If that means the costs are higher, if that means the person will need an extra night, BAAL would entertain that better than having the person to fly within the UK. Obviously, I mean, these are general suggestions. We would take special requests, considerations, I mean, medical conditions into account as well. But we would I ask colleagues to think about travel sustainability when working on their budget. So as I said earlier, the final decision is never a simple yes. Well, it's always simple, I would hope. Peter and Sarah might disagree with that. It's always simple in that mean we say, yes, we're very happy to fund this, but we would ask you to consider these points that came from the reviewers and to adjust your application. Sometimes the adjustments in the application may be in the application itself, in the planning of the seminar or the workshop, thinking of, okay, well, we actually think you need more time for networking in this session, in that other session. Sometimes the negotiation goes in the budget. We didn't really understand why you were asking for this, and we would ask you to reconsider that. If it's really not relevant, can you take that out from the budget? And we would be happy to fund your application without that. So on and so forth. So these are the discussions that go around after the final decision is reached by the BAAL-EC. I've also been asked the number of awards that we make. This depends on how much colleagues bid for. Generally, we would award 2 workshop grants of £1,500 from this year onwards. And for seminars, we would also generally grant 2,000 grants with extra repayable floats of 1,000. I think the key point in closing the session on funding, this point on funding, is success rates that I have been asked this week, and I went on to calculate that. And both Peter and Sarah were surprised to hear about that. And I have to say, even I was surprised before I took on this post admin, we had such high success rates for both the seminars and the workshops. So you can see here that for the workshops in 2020, the first year that we ran this, all applications were funded, and the same thing in the final year. Just in 2021, we had a 75% success rate, and that's mainly due to the fact that one application, for instance, was incomplete, and that didn't go ahead. So for the seminars in 2020, 2021, we funded all the applications. That was the pandemic year, so people requested considerable lower amounts because they were running the seminars online. In 2021, 22, we had 50% success rate. And in this academic year, 2022, 23, we had a 33% success rate. And we actually had to run 2 rounds, 2 calls, because we didn't award 2 seminars in the first round. So we awarded 1 in the first round, and then we put on an extra round, and we awarded the second one in there. If you were to ask me about the competition is generally not one application against the other. It's generally your own application. It is very uncommon, although it has happened, but it's very uncommon that when the reviewers think that the proposal is fundable, that proposal is not funded. So generally, when the proposal is not funded, is because the reviewers had thought that they were not fundable. There were elements missing or elements that required further reconsideration. So I think the highlight in here is that it is feasible, it is possible, and it is very likely that people will get their funding provided that they have put in a proposal that's strong enough. So I think these were all the questions I received. I will open the floor now for any questions you might have, either about the calls or about Peter's and Sarah's experiences of running these events. So just a reminder for those of you who joined us later, that means the session is being recorded. So you're very much welcome to put your hands up if you want to ask a question, and turn on your mic and or your camera. But if you don't want to do that, you can type your question in the chat, and I can read that out aloud, and we can answer that. We've had one question in the chat earlier on, and I've already replied to that in the chat. So the question was about some contracts. We don't sign contracts with university, so that's not something that we would generally do. And I have to say the question about VAT is something completely new in my experience. So if you send me the question about VAT by email, I can run that past the treasurer, BAAL treasurer. Okay, so we've got one hand up. Yvette, please.
Thank you, Vander. I have a question about the ring fence. What does it mean? I think you briefly mentioned this before, but because my colleague and I had very different interpretations of that, so I just want to check what it means. And a related question to that is, what can be counted as ECR? I noted you explained this in the document, but because my colleague on the one hand, she has a very long history in working in academia. However, she only got her PhD within the required amount, but she's going to exceed that limit very soon, soon after the deadline of the application. So we weren't really sure how, whether she is ECR or not. And also because I'm a PhD, and if she is not a ECR, not a PhD, then will our funding be considered as ring fence or not? Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's an excellent question, Yvette. We adopt the same criterion of ECR that is used by research councils in the UK. So in the call, you will find the AHRC guidelines for meeting the requirements of being an ECR. So we wouldn't go and check that ourselves. So that's the rule of the letter of support. So it will be your colleague's line manager who will have to state that they meet the AHRC guidelines. Now, if you are a PhD student, and let's say she's not an early career researcher, and you two are organizing a workshop proposal, that's not an issue, because the workshop proposal is open to both ECR, doctoral students, ECRs, and all BAAL members. So that's absolutely not an issue. I see your question about whether it's going to be considered for the ring fence funding or not. I think that depends on who the lead applicant is. So let's say if the lead applicant is an ECR or a PhD student, a doctoral student, better saying, then that is considered for the ring fence funding. If the application is led by a colleague who does not meet either of the descriptions I just told you, then it wouldn't be eligible for the ring fence funding. Is that clear now?
Yeah.
You had a first question which I missed, sorry.
Yeah, so the first question was, I know the guideline about the definition about ECR, but it offered two definitions, and she falls into one but falls out of the other. So so not really sure how, whether she is the ECR or not.
Okay, well, I think that might be best if you could drop me an email, because I don't want to discuss particular personal circumstances in here, because I will probably need to know what you're talking about, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot. So if you want to drop me an email at vendor.viana@ed.ec.uk, I can look into that for you. But as I said, I mean, if you are the lead applicant, that's not going to be an issue for the ring-fenced funding. If she is the lead applicant, she wouldn't be eligible. The application wouldn't be eligible for the ring-fenced funding, but that would still be considered as any other application.
Yeah, right, sure. Thank you. Sorry, just a follow-up question about the like ring fence. So if because that's PhD, I know the money wouldn't really go to me. So then if we want to order food, obviously I don't have money for that. How we will process this?
Yes, that's where Peter's input was very helpful. So I would encourage you to talk to your institution, to ask how they would help you manage that. So that's not something I would be able to answer that, because it depends on at the university where you are based and how they process that. And that's why we ask for both ECRs and PhD students a letter of support, because part of that letter of support will have to state that the institution is happy to support it and to manage it, because the money wouldn't be transferred to individuals, as you said, and you shouldn't be paying anything out of your pocket. It needs to go through the university. So perhaps if you could have a word, if you or your colleague could have a word with your institutions to ask how that would be managed. One key thing, as I was saying in the chat earlier on, sometimes that helps with some institutions, perhaps not all, is that we don't request a contract to be signed. There is none of that paperwork. If classing this as research might make things more difficult to you, you might consider classifying this as something else within your institution, as an event that could be potentially administered by administrators within your school or your faculty, rather than the research office. But that's something I'm afraid I can't help you much. It would need to be discussed within your university.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you. I saw another hand, but it disappeared now, so I'm not sure why I was talking just now. I saw another hand up, but it has disappeared. So yes, Charlotte, please.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I'm not sure if my camera's working, but that's okay. I was just going to ask. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, sure.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. If for some reason we were intended to invite a speaker, this is for the doctoral ECR, and for whatever reason, perhaps they couldn't attend, or if we're still in the process of deciding on a guest speaker, is that okay to have it a bit more tenuous in the application, or would we need the speaker decided by the deadline?
That's an excellent question, Charlotte. That's also a question that we receive every year. So we would encourage colleagues to be as certain as possible in the application. So you don't have to give all the details, but sorry, you don't need to say everyone has confirmed, but we would encourage you to try and confirm as many people as possible, and to just be clear in your application who has confirmed and who is yet to be confirmed. We do understand later on that things might shift and people might have other urgent matters to attend to in terms of guest speakers. But if you could make it clear that you have sought final confirmation or initial acceptance from people, whether you have contacted them or not, because this will help the evaluators.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. I'm aware we've got 3 minutes before the end of the session, so if we've got any final word, yes. Boker, please.
Hi, it's Bushra. Thank you so much. And I would like to ask Peter, and thanks a lot also about mentioning the bursaries in your application. So, I mean, would it be possible to tell us more about this, like the amount, the criteria for participants to get these bursaries? Because I myself got a bursary to attend the BAAL conference, and I think that's a great thing to offer to other members.
Well, perhaps you can just preface that by saying we don't make any requirements, or we don't specify anything. So we don't say how much you can or you should award to people. It's up to the proponents to decide that. But I'll allow Peter to talk about his experience now.
Yeah, thanks. So what we did was we prioritized non-funded PhDs, and we offered bursaries of up to £100, and then it was up to individuals to kind of say how much they would need and kind of make the case based on the train tickets. And a lot of the time what we found was that people overestimated how much they would need. So actually, in the end of the day, we were able to extend our bursaries to some funded students who had applied as well. So we kind of did it in a two-tier system. We kind of asked everybody to apply for bursaries that wanted it, and then make their case, ask them whether they were funded and why they were applying for the bursary. In the first instance, we looked through only the unfunded PhDs, and then we found actually we had some extra money to allocate. So we went back through, and we didn't. And for the funded participants, I don't think we met necessarily what people had asked for. But even if we gave them half of the ticket, you know, that was still something valuable.
Yes, thank you so much.
That's okay.
Thank you, Peter. All right, so we're coming to the end of this. So if you have any other questions, I mean, if you still got any outstanding queries, or if anything occurs to you between now and the deadline on the 17th of November, please do feel free to email me. I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have and support you in any way I can. I generally, when proposals come in earlier than the day, I also try to screen them just in case. I mean, there is still time for you to address any points that you might have missed. I mean, I don't read and give feedback on the proposal, but I do check if everything that needs to be there is there. Or if you have forgotten anything, if you forgot to submit anything. So thanks a bunch. Thank you for being with us on a Friday afternoon. Have a nice weekend, hopefully a dry one, and the best of success with your applications. And thank you very much. And thanks to Peter. Thanks a lot to Peter, Sarah, Juhua, and Caroline for being here with us.
Thank you, Wanda. It's just wonderful, very informative, very helpful. Thank you, Wanda.
But thank you. Bye-bye. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.